Morning, everyone. I can see people joining. Lovely to see you. Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday morning. Hope you've survived the wind and the rain and everything else that the weather's throwing at you at the moment. I have the same thing to say at every one of these. Let's just have 30 seconds awkward silence, shall we? Just while we wait for everybody to sign in and get settled. So I'm afraid you don't have time to go make a cup of tea or coffee. I hope you've already got one, but let's just make sure everyone's signed up before we can get going. I can still see people joining.
Let me know if my audio is loud enough, because I can always
A bit louder, it'll go.
because we can always
Everyone that we're on a meeting format with this one. I'll explain all in a moment, but if everyone apart from the speakers could go on mute, that would be really useful. Thank you very much. Okay, I think we're just about got everybody in. I can see the guest list. I can see loads of familiar names and faces. So yeah, lovely to see you all. Some new ones too. I'm here just to do the welcome, really. My name's Matt. I'm the MD at BIMA. I'm just here to give a bit of context and say thanks for joining and introduce the speakers for today. You're here because you're almost definitely a member of BIMA, and you'll know that we do a million and one things. And those a million and one things often manifest themselves in and around events. But the whole crux and a lot of the reason people join BIMA is because they have a very collaborative way of working, and now is a very kind of almost volatile time. The pace of change is unprecedented at the moment. So you kind of bring people together that are willing to share knowledge and embark on that journey of change together. And so we run a monthly masterclass, which is essentially a bit like a workshop or a webinar that's run by the membership for membership, because BIMA's got this lovely eclectic mix of people and businesses in it. And you can often find experts in very bespoke, specific areas that are willing to sort of impart their knowledge and help everybody else. So today we've got Firney, we've got Mark and Ashley. Mark's the CEO at Firney and Ashley's the director. Where have you been this year? If you haven't come across a conversation about generative AI, but we've come across Mark and Ashley have got a presentation that's going to go sort of under the skin of it and talk about some practicalities about what's coming up in and around generative AI and how you can use it in your businesses. Quite often these are a webinar format, so you're always just strictly off camera and on mute, and you engage with the speakers through the Q&A and the chat room. But this is going to be a little bit more interactive in places. So we're on a meeting format. We've hopefully spotlighted the speakers as and when they talk. But like I said, if you wouldn't mind just putting yourself on mute and off camera, unless Mark or Ashley kind of specifically want to interact with you. Other housekeeping formats, we are being recorded. So if you do engage, just bear that in mind, that we'll probably put this on the website and it'll be pushed out to other members. I think that's it for me. The only thing I did want to mention is I always try and pitch a few things that are coming up. If you're around tomorrow, we've got a new business peer network that's online that's still got places left available. Next week, we've got a growth power hour where you can join. It goes a little bit quiet next week because it's half term, but then we've got some other things coming up. So if you've got some more, I hate the phrase junior, but if you've got some junior people in your teams, we run a thing called the Dinger events. And we've got one in London on the 1st of November and one in Brighton just before that. It's an event that's specifically geared to people in the first 5 years of their career. And they come along, we hire a room in a pub, we buy everyone a couple of drinks, we line up some interesting speakers. But just have a look at our website and you'll see all the things that we've got coming up. But for now, it's about Mark and it's about Ashley and it's about generative AI. I think that's it for me, Mark and Ashley. Are you good to go? And I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, all good, all good.
Okay. Thank you both for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure. So we are Mark and Ashley. We're from Firney. So we are a cloud and AI company that started a couple of years ago. I'll keep it short today, unless Ashley, you want to add anything to that? I'll skip straight in.
Go ahead.
All good. Cool. So we've got a bit of a tour of generative AI, kind of what it is, how it works. I'm going to try and keep it a bit non-technical, so there's no code I'll be showing, but I will be showing some of the tooling that your engineering teams can use. I've got a few actual use cases and demos that you can see of this stuff in action, a bit of a guidance on how and when to use generative AI versus traditional ML APIs versus custom models, so custom built models. And then we'll have a look at how you can use Gen AI on Vertex AI, Google's AI platform, and how your team can get started kind of with those projects and kind of best practices around that. So what is generative AI? So Gen AI mimics human intelligence. It's not inherently intelligent. It's if you've come across ChatGPT or Google Bard, those are generative AI. Just to kind of set the scene, I think everyone's familiar with those, but they have versions of those that you can use for your own purposes. So you can kind of retrain them and such. But these are, they're a type of AI that mimic human intelligence. They seem quite intelligent, but in reality, they're just very good at predicting things. So they use statistical models to analyze huge amounts of data, kind of website data, books, phrases, and they learn the patterns and connections between them, and they become very good at understanding kind of what comes next in any given sentence or paragraph or such. And in terms of their usefulness, is mainly around sort of tasks like content generation or any kind of text-to-text or text-to-image problem. There are also kind of text-to-video and such coming along as well. But this is kind of what they excel at. So anything where it's kind of generating articles, stories, blogs, categorizing items, generating an image for your marketing and such. Those are the kind of challenges that Gen AI is good at. As I said, they're not aware. They don't know anything. They're just really good at figuring out what comes next. But it looks like real thought and creativity when it gets advanced enough. So you pass in a paragraph and it can predict which paragraph comes next. So chat conversations, for example, it can predict the next chat item in a list. So in terms of use cases, according to McKinsey & Company, 75% of generative AI's value will be realized across customer operations, marketing and sales, software engineering, and R&D. So these are the areas that we're seeing most of the use cases at the moment. Not to say they're the only areas, but this is where we're seeing a lot of progress at the moment. So I've got an example here. So I'm going to show you how you can use generative AI for your LinkedIn posts. So if I open this up, so can you see the Excel okay? I can't actually see what you're seeing. So we built a LinkedIn post generator. So in this example, all I'm doing is I'm using Excel to pull together a kind of a well-crafted prompt for ChatGPT so that it can create LinkedIn posts for us. Not to say they'd be perfect. The thing with kind of the generative AI models is because they're trained on huge amounts of data, they become very average in what they generate and very kind of run of the mill in what they output. So, but it's a good starting point. So I can put this into ChatGPT and it can generate a post for me that I can then go in. I can add my own insights and things too. They are good at being kind of well-rounded. So it's good at kind of catching things that I might not have thought of. But yeah, as I say, it comes out a bit average. So you need to go in and add your own insights and things to it to make it better. But it's rapidly sped up, I think, our post-generation carousel generation time I use it for as well. So as an example, I could say, acts like a cloud engineer for cloud engineering. I'm going to use an actionable structure. So I've got this kind of as a lookup. So depending on what I choose, it'll change kind of what the post should look like. I'm going to use an actionable one on this one. And then I've got a bunch of advice as to how the post should be formatted. So it should use UK English. It should do a whole bunch of things. And ChatGPT isn't perfect at all of these, but it does follow most of it pretty well. So, and then the theme is, we can pick any of these really. But I've pre-populated these. So automation with DevOps, and the challenge should be around kind of innovation and growth or operational efficiency. And as I change these, it kind of changes the goals that the audience might want to see in that post. And then I've got a couple more options before I also pick a template that I'd like it to follow. And the result is this kind of prompt over here that is kind of all pulled together. So all I'm doing is concatenating all this, all of these text items together to create a post for me, or to create a prompt for me even. And I can take that prompt, head over to ChatGPT, and just looking around the camera, do a new post, and it does add some white space, but ChatGPT doesn't care. And it will output a nice post for me that I can then kind of go in and modify and add my own insights to, and then drop into social media. And I was doing quite a few of these for a while. I haven't done any lately, but yeah, it's nice and easy to kind of generate some LinkedIn posts. So that's the first demo. And then second demo is an example we built for a customer of ours. So yeah, we have this customer Kays who owns this brand Props. And Kays is a film directory for film and TV based in Pinewood Studios. And they have pretty much anybody who's anybody in film and TV is in their directory. But they also, one of those kind of groups of people is prop manufacturers. So we built this system for him that essentially allows them to go in and search for the kind of props they want. So if they want a car or something, they can go in and type car, and it will go in and it will find all the relevant cars and things. Now, nobody has tagged these images manually at this stage. It's all actually been done by generative AI. So what it does in the background is we took all of those images and we pushed them up to the Google Vision AI API. And that is very good at detecting what's inside an image. So we took all of the images of cars and lamps and all the other props and fed them into that API model, and it came back with the labels for each one of those images. And if I go into one of these and I just save, and if I'll just go back to the home page, I'll do it from the start. So what we can do is actually take one of those images and drop it in and do an image search, as you might have seen with sort of Google and such. And very similarly, we can now take that image. That image is now being pushed into the Vision API to detect what's inside that image, which is a car. And it's come back with the label of car, and we're searching against our database of tagged images, which include the label of car, and it returns kind of all of those images for us. So it's a nice example here of how we can integrate AI into a search engine and use it to improve kind of the experience. So it's rapidly sped up their ability to tag all of these images because yeah, they've got 20,000 images or something, so it would take an individual far too long to tag all of this. But yeah, and the Vision API comes back with not only what's in the image, but what the kind of prominence of the item is. So the car is kind of the main focal point in these images. It's kind of given that a very high rating. So and yeah, the quality of the images isn't always great, but you've got a lot there, a lot there that you can work with. So yeah, there's an example in practice. And yeah, so the LLMs, so these are some of the kind of high level use cases you will get when kind of looking into large language models and generative AI. These are the kind of things you can generate. So I won't go through them all, but obviously social post generator we saw there, and image tagging and search. You can do other things, like you can do kind of obviously chatbot interactions and troubleshooting. You could do support ticket classifiers. So you could say to the Gen AI, I want given this piece of text in these 8 categories, which category does it fall into? And it will do that. And yeah, use it for generating video scripts or specifications and ingredients. You could take those and use generative AI to format those into a predefined structure in JSON format, which could be used in engineering, or yeah, use it for ad copy and such as well. But the problem with these is they're all very high level and not very useful without any context. So if you take one of these, for example, the customer service chatbot, and you dive a bit deeper into it, so you start thinking about, okay, well, what's the persona for this? What's the ideal customer profile that we're targeting, and which industry are they in? Which industry are they in? And we'll say, right, it's a fashion retail website owner. Their challenge is that they frequently get asked for clothing for a particular occasion. And it's taking kind of their support staff a long amount of time to kind of deal with those requests. So what data sources do they have? Well, they have all of the e-commerce product listings, and they have all of the historical chat interactions that the agents have had with the customers. So we can take our generative AI chat model and we can train that on previous chat interactions with sorry, just go back to Predator. We can train that on previous chat interactions with the agents have had, and when kind of they're chatting through, you can see an example here. When they ask for something, we can use that and marry that to the data that's in their product listings. So we can then show those items inside the listings, and it gets a bit more interesting when you get to this level, because now we've got a bot that actually has a purpose and is interactive and leads us directly to the actual products within the website as well. So this raises the question. So we have all of these different types of AI and ML APIs and custom models. When do we use each? So I've put together a bit of a table here. So the generative AI, they're good for kind of those time-intensive problems and manual work. And they're really good at doing rapid proof of concepts, because all you have to do really is just craft a prompt and see how well it responds. And then they can be the drawback is they can be very confident in inaccurate answers, which then means obviously you need to train it with more accurate data to get around those inaccurate answers. They're low effort, low cost, and you can train them on your own data. Whereas traditional ML APIs, so this is kind of the Vision AI or the Google Video Intelligence AI, which is very similar to the Vision AI I mentioned, which does the image labeling. The Video Intelligence does the same thing for video, so it will detect kind of what's in a scene and such. So they're again very good for kind of rapid integration of those what they do, but they are limited. So whereas the generative AI is a bit more open-ended and it can do more things, the ML APIs will be very fixed. They'll do one thing, like they'll do image labeling, or they'll do text-to-speech or something. It's very fixed in what it does. But they are low effort and low cost. And the challenge with those is, for a lot of those APIs, you can't train them on your own data, except for AutoML, which is another Google product, which does let you kind of start with the existing model and then train on top of it. But obviously you can do the same thing with Vertex AI. And then custom models. So a lot of people think you need all this data. You need your own data science team in order to get started. The reality is that's quite expensive, and it's quite expensive to get all that data together, to clean all that data, to kind of have an entire data science team is a large expense. So this is really only a route for if you want a very highly specialized prediction and you want a high level of accuracy. Sorry, phone call. Mute my phone. How unprofessional. The custom model drawbacks is that it requires specialized expertise to build out those models. So that's the data science team you'd need. And then, so it's high effort, high cost, and you can train it with your own data. You can do whatever you want with it. But yeah, it takes longer, and it's more effort essentially. But you can do a lot with the first two. So generative AI and the traditional ML APIs, there's a lot you can do without kind of getting that far, as we've seen already. So how do you get started with generative AI on Vertex AI? So I'm going to show you a quick example now on the Bison example on Vertex AI. So if your engineering team goes into the Vertex AI platform, they've got all the tools here they need in order to get started with generative AI and integrate that into your products. So you have in here, just to give you a quick whirlwind tour, so there's a model garden, and Google has this approach around all the models where they want to make all of the models accessible, like open source models and such, all on their platform. They'd like you to run all these things on their platform. Obviously, then they get all the compute and cloud costs. You can do whatever you want essentially on top of these models. So you can retrain them. You can use them as you see fit. In here, you have the tools to kind of work with those models and run kind of tests with them. So you can kind of quickly go in and design new prompts. You can fine tune those with your own data. So you have the ability to go in and kind of tweak those models so you're using the existing model, but adding your own data on top. So it's rather than having to have kind of millions of millions of items in your data set, you can do your training on sort of 100 to 500 items instead. And then, yeah, there's a few other things in here for kind of training and development. And then you have a model registry, which is where you can kind of put your model, store your model, and then deploy it to an endpoint so that you can then integrate it with your web service or website, and then use it in there. But to give you a quick example, so if I go into the language and I start a text chat, and in here, what I can do is say that I want to act as and I have an example of this. So I want to act like content specialist and create links in post. So similar to the item I created before, I just got an example here. And what I want it to do is to do 10 steps to writing effective SEO headlines. Has it got all that? Yeah. And yeah, that goes off. And this is using now the Bison API, which is the Palm 2 chatbot from Google. So just using their existing model, we haven't trained it on anything specific. You can give some examples with your own data, but we can see there already we've created a bot that is custom designed to write LinkedIn posts, and it's a very basic post, but it's done it. We could give it more instructions and make it more specific, but very quickly there we've done it, and we've got all the code here in order to integrate that with our web services or everything an engineer would need in order to do their integration. Cool. And then an example of this in practice. So what we've created in our resolution hub. So this is using that Bison API. So we've created here an API, and we can go in and we can type certain messages. I've got some quick buttons here to just fill this box out. But you can go in and you can type some quick messages, and yeah, it does basically takes that question, sends it off to the Bison API, and gets the response. Very similar to like a ChatGPT or such, but this one has been custom designed to solve cloud issues. So anything wrong with kind of cloud infrastructure and such. And this could be any example. So you could do this for kind of product returns, or you could do it for anything you want really. But you could change that intent of the intent of the chatbot to be whatever you like. Now, the interesting thing here is that the way we've designed this, we've got an intermediary step between this kind of interface where the user types the question and the Google Bison API. So we've got a kind of middleware service that can intercept the question being asked and the response coming back. And what that means is that using the templates and such, we can take the responses and we could combine that with other services. So for example, with the chat example, we could take the request for clothing for a particular occasion, and we can combine that with the product database, and then they can have a nice example there of actually being able to see the products in the chat, and we can reformat it that way. So it's not just kind of only using the generative AI. So you can get quite comprehensive with these responses, interactive, and actually build them out so that they are more useful to the end user as well. Cool. So a bit of advice on how your team can get started with AI. So we've got some best practices here. First of all, just to reiterate, you don't need a data scientist. So our first example, the ChatGPT prompt, that was just a well-crafted prompt. You don't even need a spreadsheet, to be honest. You could just write the prompt and have that saved as a template somewhere, and then modify it as you see fit. But we created it in a spreadsheet just to make it really quick for us to build out kind of a month's worth of posts in about 2 hours or something. Obviously, we need to go and edit those, but it was very quick and yeah, very useful to us for our marketing. And if you do want to go down the route of kind of training a generative AI or doing any sort of AI project, then there's a certain routine that we would follow. First thing is you need to think about what is it you're actually going to focus on. So the good thing to hear is to think about all the challenges that your business or your client's business is facing at that particular time. And once you've got all of those challenges, you can then go through and kind of prioritize them based on business need. Kind of how valuable are they to the business? How easy are they to kind of complete and such? Once you've decided on an initiative, you then need to select a persona. So think about who is it you're actually solving this challenge for. And then once you have decided kind of who it is you're solving the challenge for, think about what are some other ways, what are some other ways we could improve that response? How could we make it more valuable so it's not just kind of a generative AI response going back to the user? And then determine your data sources. So for our chat example, we had the product data, we had the previous chat conversations that we could feed into the bot as well. Next step is to create a target team. So this is basically having who's going to be your prompt architect, who's going to be doing the AI, who's going to be doing the integration, who's going to be managing the project. So getting that small team that can quickly and rapidly start doing that proof of concept prompt, so that you can start getting an idea of how valuable that feedback is going to be that you're getting from the AI. Once you've got that, then you can start going down the build route. So now you're thinking about, okay, well, what's the UI and UX going to be like for the user? How are they going to interact with this model? And think about kind of the overall experience for them, and the language model operations plan. So how are you going to improve that model over time? Language models are much like web services. You can't just leave them to go stale. You need to improve them over time. You need to respond to changes in the way that users are working with the AIs. So what questions are they asking? What images are they searching for, etc. And then you can then expand it to more users. So opening up to a wider user group, which then gives you more data that you can then use for KPI assessment. And it's a good idea to come up with the KPIs a bit earlier on. There should maybe be an earlier step. Round about the time you kind of select the persona, you want to think, how are we going to assess this? How are we going to see how valuable this AI integration is, so that then you can kind of report on it later and you can improve it over time, before you then move into the launching it and moving into maintenance mode and ongoing enhancement and keeping that service running. So yeah, this is kind of the best practice that we would follow if we were doing an integration. And for a Gen AI example, it can be very quick. So 30 days isn't a reasonable amount of time. I think we actually built our first iteration of our resolution hub in about 2 weeks. So it was quick to integrate. So yes, just to reiterate the tooling. So you've got the entire the Vertex AI Gen AI Studio. So you can do everything in there, from using existing models, testing models, fine-tuning them with your own data, deploying them to production, which includes chatbots and image generation. So you've got kind of those text-to-text or text-to-image problems solved. There's also text-to-speech, and there's some extra things coming out as well in that area. And you've also got the Vertex AI search and conversation. So this is where you can very quickly take a existing data set and put it into a search context that uses natural language search. So the ability to say, I want to see all vegan products under £20 or something, and you can get it to kind of respond with those matching products. Now, the clever thing with this service is it will go off and it will learn your data set. So it will learn your website or your BigQuery data set or your files. There's a variety of different sources you can put in, or there's an API as well, so you can just integrate pretty much anything. And yeah, it will learn those things and learn the content of those pages. So it will understand whether or not a product is vegan based on the content of the page. You didn't have to explicitly have a column saying this is vegan or not. It can find that in the product description and actually figure it out. So yeah, so then you want to think about what KPIs you use to measure the impact of AI. So I won't go through all of these, but you want to be thinking about how accurate are the responses, what is the business impact, what is the cost savings, how often does it get things wrong, how quickly does it give a response to the user. So they're all different metrics you can kind of track and measure and improve over time to really improve that user experience. And these are all from the Executive's Guide to AI from Google Cloud, which it's quite easy to find on Google. But yeah, it's a really good read if you want to look into that a bit further. And yeah, so finally, just a bit of self-promotion. So we run this process ourselves. So we do the entire process from the initial discovery workshop, so running a masterclass with you or your customers to essentially go through and identify all of those opportunities. So what challenges are they facing? Which one of those should be prioritized? Which ones are good use cases for AI? What can we expand on? And then we do the entire kind of process of taking that initiative from concept through to production. So either helping them build it themselves or we can build it for them. It's yeah, flexible service for getting an AI project launched into production. Cool. So yeah, in summary, really, a lot of people are very concerned right now that generative AI is moving very fast, or AI in general is moving very fast, and it's hard to keep up. But in reality, once you delve into this a little bit deeper, everyone is at the beginning of this journey. Nobody really knows the true reach and capabilities of what generative AI can do at this stage. It's transforming every day, and yeah, it's a train that's kind of leaving, and we need to jump on. But yeah, it's poised to be very good in terms of assistance right now. So AI won't do everything for you, but it's very good in helping tasks and making tasks more easier and efficient, and boosting performance. But yeah, we're well and truly in that age of AI now. And yeah, we've been to quite a few trade shows lately, and every single one of them is an AI company. So yeah, they are. Yeah, it's an exciting time for seeing all the advancements. So, any questions? You can ask us anything.
I think there was a couple of questions in the chat, and one of the questions is worth calling out, and it's like, what are the use cases and the KPIs that you're seeing this used for? And I think the most exciting part that we're seeing out of Gen AI is as it evolves, it lets you plug in additional data sets. And as I was just putting in the chat, that means that you can fine tune and train your data using your own data set to answer the questions as relevant as possible, such as we were showing with our resolution hub. But you can also plug in external data sets. So we mentioned very briefly a tool called Enterprise Search. So what Enterprise Search does from Google is it takes the Google crawler that they use for their own information gathering and then plugs it into the large language model. So you can use the Google crawler to scrape your website and other information, and then use the large language models and Vertex AI to search the data that is gathered. So this is where we showed the use case around using the crawler to crawl all of the products within a customer's portfolio. Maybe think of like a grocery store might crawl all of their products, and then you can use the large language model or the chatbots to query the products that are in that portfolio, and you haven't had to build like a complex integration to extract all of that information from the store. The Google crawler can now do that. And I think it's these advancements that we're seeing that are really opening a lot of doors around creativity for us.
Yeah. And happy to share the deck afterwards if you just DM me on LinkedIn. I've got a QR code or link there. So if you want to DM me, I'll send you the link to the deck as well. And I think it will be available on the BIMA backlog as well. I believe it's recorded. So
yeah, there's a couple more questions. How do you see Gen AI a year from now?
A year from now, more accurate. So a lot of the challenge right now is that the initial challenge was that they were having to just train on larger and larger data sets. And every time they were building the model, they were retraining from scratch. A lot of these models are now seem to be getting to a stage where you're able to iteratively train them. And at least with all of the models in the Google model garden, you can take one of those models and kind of fine tune it, or at least the Google models you can. And you can kind of pass your own examples to the existing models. So I think they're going to get better at following directions and kind of giving you the answer you're expecting to see. We're going to see more of these very specific models. So there's a couple that come out from Google already around security and health. So they've got two bots that are very good at answering any of those questions in kind of the health and security arenas. I think there'll be more of those. Every kind of industry will have its own kind of main chat models that they use, or not just chat, anything kind of text to image, whatever it is they do. There'll be kind of those base models that we'll see more of those, I think, and more integrations. So obviously the pace it's getting quicker right now. So I think we'll just see more and more people working with it, and once you get that, you get a larger community, you get a lot more improvements happening more quickly. So yeah, lots of good things to come, I think.
If you could start the process of the resolution hub again, what would you do to improve or enhance the implementation?
What would we do to improve it? Hindsight's a wonderful thing now. So when we started, we tried several different models. The one that looked really interesting was the Llama 2 model, but it's also really expensive to run. So I think we would have started with the Palm 2 model, which is actually quite reasonably priced. So the Bison one. Do more kind of testing with the prompts up front. It's very easy to kind of just go ahead and go, oh yeah, it gives a few good responses, but actually find some examples of actual questions being asked and feed those into the prompt. Get the prompt in it, like feed through the UI in the Vertex AI console, get it into a good state. And then feed in more examples so you can see kind of what kind of responses it gives. And spend a good deal of time like there's a lot of people struggling right now with the use case stage. So it's the reason we built that masterclass, but obviously you can do it yourselves, but it's actually understanding what's the right problem to be solving right now. Like what is it that the customers are doing that we need to solve, and spending more time kind of thinking about and prioritizing what are those challenges we want to solve and in what order. Is definitely a good starting point.
Yeah, certainly. And from my own experience, I'd say on the resolution hub, maybe niching down a little bit more. I think we went in a little bit too broad and tried to solve too many problems at once, where actually we should have, hindsight, started on a smaller problem, focused on that, and then grew bigger rather than starting off at the end goal. So yeah, that would probably be my recommendation in that area too. Next question is, have you put together a company policy on what you can and can't do using AI? And if so, what's in it? Just thinking compliance-wise.
I mean, we don't explicitly have our own policy, but I know that Google and such are working on kind of guidance on this front. Well, not just Google, but there are quite a few. It is something we're going to be looking at in more detail, but
with generative AI, I think it's very highly governed and regulated already. Like, these companies are investing a lot of time. I think that, in my personal opinion, that a policy around AI would come more if you're custom training with your own information. And then obviously the realms of possibility are, what you could do are infinite, but we're nowhere near at that stage of being able to like custom train a model, of that scale that's going to really have any kind of concern. Like, there's a serious level of investment that's needed to do that. Whereas with the generative AI stuff, they're already quite filtered and regulated, and the big three that are doing this, being Google, OpenAI, and a couple of the others, Hugging Face, and Facebook, investing a lot of time into regulating them already. So we're not quite there, but maybe we'll get there in the future.
Yeah, and some of the models do have a safe mode on it as well, so it's like extra cautious about the results it's returning. I think that's one area that the Bard models is excelling in right now, is that they have put a lot of thought into making sure that it's giving the right response to the user. I don't think it's quite as wide ranging as something like ChatGPT, which is great for the kind of creative posts and such. But it's they're putting a lot of emphasis on making sure the responses are safe when they come back. So
And then what do you see the adoption timeline look like for enterprises to embed AI across their operations?
Adoption timeline. Well, I mean, this is it. So what we're seeing a lot of right now is kind of the in-house stuff. We've been doing a lot in the retail sector lately. And yeah, they're focusing on a lot of internal use cases. So they're thinking about their intranets, they're thinking about their internal operations and how they can make things more efficient as a starting point before putting anything in front of customers. Not to say they couldn't do that, and then as we've seen, some are already doing that. But yeah, it's just for them, it's a safer option.
Yeah, and I think it's just to do with where we're seeing investment in the industry anyway. I think a lot of people right now are investing in, you know, better return on revenue, cost optimization. Whereas, yes, customer experience is obviously number one priority for any retailer. But I think the investment in that area right now, from what we're seeing, has slowed down significantly, whereas everyone seems to be trying to save money, trying to be more efficient and, you know, get by in the current climate. So we're definitely seeing more investment and more projects coming for internal use cases rather than external. But I think there is a very clear use case for this, for improving customer experience and conversational commerce, right, was the term that we keep having with people, where we're definitely going to see the future where you're just going to ask a question, what do I need in this scenario, and it's going to prompt you what to buy. I think we're going to see that area grow, but I think it's very early. And right now, all the investments that we're seeing are, again, around efficiency and cost saving.
Yeah, and it's the interesting thing with the change right now is these things are just getting so accessible now. Whereas before you had to be kind of open AI in order to have your own generative AI model. Is now you can retrain on top of one of these existing models, including the Llama one was a Facebook one that was released. It's very, very high quality. Llama 2. And yeah, it's just that ease of integration is just going to open so many doors now for adoption across businesses and industries. So it's that
We lost audio. You've got to mute.
When's AI going to fix the mute problem?
Good question. While that's been solved, I'll answer the last question. So the big challenge I see is multiple vendors are offering their own AI and Gen AI plugins. Any advice on which ones to choose? I think it's really going to be about use case. I think with models such as like Llama 2, we're definitely going to see bigger adoption because it's preventing vendor locking, but also what comes with the challenge of using something like Llama 2 is that you need to power the tech behind it. Whereas where you're using certain plugins and add-ons, such as like the OpenAI API or the Google Palm 2, you have a more of a pay-per-use model. You're not responsible for the infrastructure and the tech that goes behind it. It is going to get harder and harder to know like which model is going to best meet my use case. I don't know if there is a very clear answer to that yet. It's still very new. There's still lots of models coming out at the moment from all sorts of vendors, and we're going to see that exponentially grow even further. But I think what we're going to see is more smaller base models that are just more configured to bring in your own data. And as the tech evolves and allows you to do that, like I said, we did a very, very brief demo on Vertex AI earlier, but Vertex AI has a super simple method for training any of the models in their model garden with your own data. And it's almost at a point where you can just load in a CSV with questions and answers to them questions to help train it on your own information. So yeah, hopefully that helps. I guess I'll take this time to wrap up the call, and thank you everyone for joining today. We will share the slides, there's no problem. If you do have any questions or you need any advice, feel free to reach out to us either directly or through our website. There's no problem.
Yeah.
Thank you all for joining.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.